Jai Good day, children. In this video, we are going to discuss about functions. So this complete video will be an introduction to functions. What is a function? A function is nothing but a collection of statements that could perform a particular task. So with functions, we can avoid writing the same code again and again that's over and over. Let's see the syntax of functions. To define a function, to write a function, to define a function, first we should write the return type. So look into the screen. First is the return type. It is nothing but the type of the value returned by the function. Suppose you wanted to return an integer value, you can make this return type as int, int. Suppose it's a floating point value, then you can make it as float. If it's a character value, you shall make it as char. If you don't want to return any value at all, then you can use the keyword void. You can use the keyword void. So this is about return type. The next thing, what is there after return type? It's function name. The second thing is the function name. So every function should have a name. So you can specify the function name here. The next thing is to specify the parameters in the round brackets. You can specify any number of parameters by separating them by comma. You just put the comma and separate the parameters in the round brackets when you define the function. The last thing is about the function body. See, inside the function, inside the curly brackets, the statements that are, that you wanted to get executed should be written inside the curly brackets. That is the function body. Now let's see a program. So you can understand about functions very clearly. Let's write a function named display. So directly come to the last three lines like void display. Here the function name is what? Display. And we are going to write a function called display, and we are going to print the contents, whatever contents you want to get printed in the output string shall be printed. And now to write a function, first let's specify a return type. You know you need to specify a return type because we have just now discussed about the method of defining a function. The first is return type followed by the function name, then the parameters in the round brackets. So we should follow the syntax for defining the function. So we are defining the function with this way, like first is return type. And in this example, the return type is made as void because we were actually discussing about int, float, and char. And I was also telling you about if you don't want to return any value, you can just go for void. So we are going for void here. The return type is void, followed by the function name. With this, it's clear the function name is display, and the function is not having any arguments. See, in the round brackets, there is no argument. So no parameters. No parameters. You could tell it as parameters or arguments too. So there are no parameters. So this is a function display with no return type and no parameters. Okay. When the next video, we will be actually discussing about different types of functions, where I'll be telling you about a function with no parameters and no return type, a function with parameters and return type, function with parameters and no return type, function with no parameters, and we'll be discussing about the 4 different types in the next video. Okay. So now void display of. So this is a function with no return type and no parameters because you don't have anything inside the round brackets, and the return type is not int, char or float something. So it's just void. So the function with no return type and no parameters. So it does not take any parameters. Let's leave it blank. Okay. Now next is the body of the function. And inside the function body, you have a cout statement. Whatever you want to write the statements, you can just make it. I wanted the output screen to have the statement as introduction to function. And you know what does endl do? So introduction to function will be printed in the output screen. You know those contents that are in double quotes will be printed as such in the output screen. So introduction to function will be printed when you run the program. And you normally know, see, in C++, the program execution will start only from the main function. Program execution will start only from the main function. So let's also start from the main function. So here, in the main function, it starts with int main and ends with return 0. It starts with int main and ends with return 0. But see, the display function is defined outside. It is not inside the main function. It is not inside int main. The display function is defined outside. Now, what should you do? How do you execute this display function? You can execute this display function. For that, we need to call this function from the main function. So that is why you have a display of. See, you have display of in the main function. After int main, you have display of. This particular line is called function call. This particular line is called function call. To call a function, first we need to write the function name. As per the function definition, the function name is display. And then write the parameters in the round brackets, and you see the display function is not having any parameters. So inside the function call, you don't have to mention any parameters. It is enough if you just mention the function name and the round brackets. And see, function call should end with semicolon. That is why it is ending with semicolon. If the function has some parameters, that has to be mentioned in the function call. Say if display has a and b as parameters, then the function call will be as display of a comma b. The function call will be as display of a comma b. As there is no parameters here, I am just making it as display of semicolon. This is how you should call a function. See, a function can be defined outside the main, but to access the statements or to access the instructions of the statements of the function defined outside the main, you need to have a function call in the main. That is why in the main function, you have a function call. With this function call, the compiler can execute the statements of the function display. Okay, as a program execution, now the next thing is we need to discuss about function prototyping. Function prototyping, because program execution starts from the main function, and from the in the main, see in main, what is the first line you have? You have the function call. That's display of function call, but this function is not declared before the function call. The function has to be declared first. It is defined. I know it's defined. With the screen, it's defined. You know it's defined. But this function is called and defined, but this function is not declared. So this will generate an error. See the bottom portion. See, there is an error called display was not declared. This is the error you get if you don't declare the function. If you don't declare the function. To solve this problem, see at the bottom you can see there is an error. Display was not declared. To solve this problem, we need to write the function prototyping. Now let's see about function prototyping. You need to write the function prototyping. See, this function prototyping is nothing but function declaration. You could tell it's function declaration or function prototyping, both the same. Function declaration or function prototyping, and this function declaration is without the function body. It doesn't have function body. It is just declared. It will not have a function body. To do prototyping, what should you do? First, you should write the return type. See the previous line before int main, you have void as return type and the function name is display. Then if you have any parameters, as there is no parameter in this function, it is just left blank, the round brackets. And after that, you should put a semicolon and end the declaration. So for declaration, that's prototyping or function call, you need to put the semicolon. But for function definition, you need not put the semicolon, because you know semicolon is the terminator in C++. And when you put the semicolon, what happens? The compiler's control will stop in that line. It will not proceed further. As this is just a prototyping or declaration and function call, you can put a semicolon. But in definition, you should not put a semicolon. See, void display of cout introduction to function. You wanted cout introduction to, you wanted the statements in cout, that's introduction to function, to be printed in the output screen. But if you put a semicolon in the function definition, the next line cannot be executed because it's a terminator. The compiler will stop. The compiler, C++ compiler will stop when it sees, or in the moment it encounters the semicolon, it will stop that particular line. So you should not put semicolon for function definition, whereas you can put semicolon for function call and function declaration. Now let's see the output screen. So function is, now with this program, you got to know the method of defining a function, the method of calling a function, the method of declaring a function. I'll tell you again, the method of defining a function is return type, that's void, function name, that's display, and the arguments in the round brackets, or that's parameters in the round brackets. And you should not put semicolon, and you can have a function body for function definition. The statements in the function body of this function definition displays introduction to function. And this function definition can be, this function can be defined outside the main. But a function to, you wanted a program with function to get executed, you need a function call and function declaration. And this function call has to be inside the main. And the method of calling the function is function name and the arguments in the round brackets, then putting a semicolon. And you need to declare the function or do the function prototyping, only then you can call it. So this function prototyping can be there before the main. And the method of prototyping or declaring a function is writing the return type, then the function name, and then going for the round brackets. You need to put a semicolon for function declaration and function call, but not for function definition. Let's see the output. See the output. Introduction to function has got printed in the output screen. So this is all about function. So you got to know about function declaration, that's function prototyping, then function call and function definition. A function definition should not have semicolon and it can have function body, but a function prototyping will have semicolon and it will not have function body, and function call will have semicolon and function call is inside the main. That's it, children. Thank you. In the next video, we shall discuss about the different types of functions. Thank you.